Hi everyone, thank you for coming and welcome. Today we are honored to have Derek, a CCOM colleague and friend, and also a UNH alumnus. So thank you for accepting the invitation to present Derek. But before I pass it over to him, I'll just quickly go through his bio. Derek Sowers is the Mapping Operations Manager for the Ocean Exploration Trust and an affiliate assistant professor at UNH CCOM. He previously served as an expedition coordinator for NOAA Ocean Exploration for 9 years while completing his PhD in oceanography at UNH. The Ocean Exploration Trust is an industrial partner with UNH CCOM. Derek has an office here in the building and frequently partners with faculty, staff, and students on ocean exploration missions. Please join me in welcoming Derek.
Thanks, Elias. And should mention that Elias has actually been out on Nautilus a couple of times and has helped run the navigation and mapping system on the ship. So if any of you are interested in what it's like to be out on the ship, please talk to Elias and see what his experience was all about. So my talk today is really focused on explaining what we mean by community-based ocean exploration. And when we say that, it's basically the community, the broad scientific community, engaging all the marine scientists around the world, hopefully, in what we're doing, as well as partners like CCOM and others that we'll talk about, and also the community of end users. So we're gathering data, we're going to an area, we want it to be used. So that's hopefully I'll be advertising some of that to anyone in here who might be looking for data to work with. Okay, so if you're not familiar with the Ocean Exploration Trust, we are a nonprofit organization. We were formed in 2007 by Dr. Robert Ballard. He's our founder and president, and actually Larry Mayer has been long involved in the organization. He's the chair of our board of directors. And our mission is really to explore the ocean, seeking new discoveries, pushing the boundaries of both technological innovation and education and outreach. So we have a very active education and outreach program which really tries to bring ocean science out to the masses and get people fascinated by the ocean and how much there is to discover out there. Our primary exploration asset is the exploration vessel Nautilus. So it's an 86-meter ship. It was outfitted for ocean exploration in 2007, 2008. So we've had a deep water multi-beam system on since then. It's operated by 17 crew, and we have berthing for about 35 scientists, engineers, educators. And accomplishments to date include 1,107 ROV dives and counting, so we're at sea right now. And 1.3 million square kilometers mapped, so that's about 3 times the land area of California is our sort of mapping footprint to date. I think everyone in this room is probably well familiar with this map, with the dark areas of the ocean being places that have not yet been mapped with modern multi-beam systems. So we're really heavily focused on answering, filling in these gaps and exploring these areas for the first time, gathering basic information and sharing it with as broad a community of people as possible. Other science priorities for OET include being responsive to NOAA and our other sponsors. Sometimes we have funders from like Ocean Networks Canada to go help maintain their offshore infrastructure, Office of Naval Research for our internship program, things like that. Obviously, as I just explained, we really want to focus on the mapping of the unexplored. We don't want to go do a lot of repeat surveys of areas that have good maps already. And then we want to really have a strong emphasis on new and emerging technologies that can kind of expand the scope and the pace of ocean exploration. We also try to be very responsive to the science needs of the places we're actually going to. We go to far-flung places in the ocean, including Pacific remote islands, which have a long history, oftentimes, of local resource knowledge and management. And we want to really engage with those communities and understand their science questions, their management priorities, and their indigenous knowledge, and bring that to bear on the expeditions. We strive to be interdisciplinary and collaborative, so you'll see that when we have like live operations at sea, we often have scientists tuning in from all over the planet to really weigh in on their biological or geological or archaeological expertise. So not just one specific hypothesis like kind of a traditional research cruise, but really trying to make as much of the information and operations relevant to a broad community of people. And then on the end, everything we collect minus maybe sensitive location data for underwater cultural heritage sites, that's all public data, and it's all available for our use to the broad science community. So to delve a little bit into our mode of operations, as you can imagine, when you go to an unknown place, the first thing you want is a good map. So we focus on mapping, and then we follow up with ROV surveys or other autonomous assets or other exploration tools, which I'll describe. And then a key component of Nautilus operations right from the beginning has been this idea of telepresence, that we want to broadcast live what we're doing to pretty much anyone with an internet connection to tune in and get excited about the deep sea and see what we're up to and participate. So our mapping capabilities right now are an EM302 multibeam system. So that's really a multibeam that's meant for kind of off-the-shelf operations in the deep sea. It's great for mapping seamounts, continental slopes, and to a certain extent abyssal plains. It collects bathymetry, backscatter, and water column backscatter, so we're constantly collecting those data feeds. We also have a Newton sub-bottom profiler on board, so that's giving us some information about the shallow subsea bed geology. So a really important data set for our geologist partners. And we also have an acoustic Doppler current profiler that can also be run as an EK80 fishery sonar. So this gives us a good sense of the speed and direction of currents all around the ship whenever we're about to deploy some sort of asset. We want to make sure that we know the currents relative to the ship. Our mapping approach in general is really to gather data wherever there isn't good data, or where there's poor data and we want to kind of remap it and get something better. And then we're making sure this goes directly into the public archives for things like you're familiar with, like the NOAA NCI, bathymetry data set, GMRT. We're supporting Seabed 2030, and more recently, the National Strategy for Ocean Mapping, Exploration, and Characterizing the U.S. Exclusive Economic Zone. Our data is directly relevant to implementing that plan. Other assets we have on board are remotely operated vehicles. So the vehicle there on the right is called Hercules, and that's kind of the main workhorse in terms of getting close to the seafloor, landing on it, getting samples. It has manipulator arms there that you can see. We can collect biological samples, rocks, put it in boxes. We can collect water samples for eDNA processing. And we can also put a variety of guest technologies on there to test a lot of different sensors. So it's an interesting platform. A lot of places where you have an ROV, people are very sensitive about putting anything new on there. I feel like our ROV team is very open-minded to having someone show up with an instrument, give us a couple days to integrate it, and we'll do the best we can to get it working, get useful information off of it. And so it's really an innovative test platform for guest technologies. That's rated to 4,000 meters. It dives along with ROV Atalanta, so that's connected directly to the ship with like a 6/8 steel cable with power and fiber optic connectivity. And that kind of is a really heavy weight, basically. And then the next one, we dive them as a two-body system. So Atalanta is connected directly to the ship. And then the ROV in the front, Hercules, is on a tether, so it's got sort of disconnected from the heaving of the ship, and we can get really close to the seabed and get nice imagery that's not bouncing all around. That's our main mode of operation with the ROVs, and then if we're deeper than 4,000 meters, we have to put little Hercules on the end there, because that's rated down to 6,000. So right now, for instance, we're in the Cook Islands, and there's a lot of regions in that area that are very deep, and we can only really explore with this asset. I wanted to shift a little bit and talk about some of the partnerships that we have. So this is a nice overview of many of the partners, and I wanted to highlight that it's not just like academia partners, but we also work a lot with private sector companies to advance their technologies that partner directly with us, and most importantly through the Cooperative Institute that we're part of, and the federal agencies, primarily NOAA, that helps fund this work. So we're part of the NOAA Ocean Exploration Cooperative Institute. You've probably heard of this since you've been around UMH for a while. So we're a key partner in this, and one of our key roles is that we have a ship that we can go out and use as the platform for testing the technologies of the partner organizations in the Cooperative Institute. And you can see here, it's University of Rhode Island, Woods Hole, Southern Mississippi, and UNH. The main goals of the OECI, this is a cooperative institute that's competitively funded, so that NOAA has designated that this is the most effective way to get out and accomplish the 3 goals set here, which is exploring the US exclusive economic zone, developing and advancing new technologies for ocean exploration, and we want to really directly engage and train sort of the next generation of people that can go out and do this type of work and contribute to a blue economy workforce. So highlighting what some of these specific technologies are that we've had out on Nautilus over the past few years. I think everyone's familiar with UNH's DRIX that's been out on the ship on numerous missions. It's equipped with a deep water or midwater mapping EM712, EK80. You can put a USBL system on there to track the position of other subsea vehicles. And that can be used in tandem with other vehicles, which I'll explain in a little bit. If you missed it, Val gave a great talk on more details about how this has been working in practice and some of the challenges and successes of that vehicle. Also this past year, we've had out the Orpheus AUV. So this is currently a private sector vehicle that originated the design in Woods Hole. It's rated down to 6,000 meters, and it has HD cameras, CTD sensors, and they're actually trying to develop a coring system that can take sediment samples off an AUV, which is kind of novel. We've also had Woods Hole Sentry vehicle. This is a really capable, great vehicle for doing very detailed, high-resolution surveys of the deep oceans, rated down to 6,000 meters. So we had that out in American Samoa last year. It housed other sensors depending on the mission. And I'll explain that in a case study of that in a little bit. As you saw last week when Dana was here, he's been a lead on the AUV Mesobot, also a Woods Hole vehicle, so we've had that out on the ship several times. And that's really designed to explore the midwater, which is really the least explored part of the ocean on a volume basis. So pretty exciting, everything that he went over in last week's talk. And that's, again, something that we hope to have back. We also have worked with these different profiling and lander systems. So Chris Roman's lab down at University of Rhode Island has developed the top right vehicle there called the Deep Autonomous Profiler. As you can see, it's got these massive Niskin bottle rosette around it, and then you can also put a variety of sensors for measuring things like oxygen, acoustics, and it's fully ocean depth rated, so you can send it to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. And it's meant to be intelligent, so if you're gathering water environmental data on the way down, you could actually kind of program it to sample certain layers based on that information. So for instance, if you went down and you found the oxygen minimum zone with your oxygen sensor on the way back up, you can program it to take a water sample within that minimum zone. So it's not just like fixed profiling. You can be smart about where you're taking your water samples. And you can do things like collect water samples through a variety of parts of the water column and then process that for things like eDNA or chemical studies. We've also had the Hadel water column profiler from the University of Hawaii out. So kind of a different vehicle, doesn't have the CTD rosettes, and its sensor package is really looking more at things like current velocities and mixing dynamics as you go down through the water column. Also full ocean depth rated landing system, or profiler, sorry. We've also worked with Scripps. We've had out their WAM MV ASV shown up there in the top, which is kind of an interesting vehicle. It's meant to kind of absorb some of the wave motion with those two independently moving floats on either side. The liquid robotics wave glider and the Slocum gliders, they all brought that out last year and did a really interesting study deploying all those assets to understanding sort of current regimes moving around the islands of Palau. We've also had Woods Hole's hybrid ROV Nereid under ice out on the ship. and that was involved in one of these sort of tech challenges where we're trying to see how multiple vehicles work, can work kind of cooperatively in tandem. We've worked really closely on a new in situ eDNA sampler system. So this was developed by the Aquatic Labs and Woods Hole. There's a 1,000 meter rated and a 6,000 meter rated version of this, and the kind of revolution here is that instead of just taking a water sample and then getting it back to the ship and processing whatever volume you were able to collect on a filter, looking at that DNA, you're able to pump much larger volumes of water through a filter in situ wherever you want. So you get a much larger sampling volume, and you can get a much more representative sample of the biodiversity in an area through the sort of DNA collected from the cells in the water. It's really cool. We've deployed it off the DAP, the lander there that you see. So you can see it kind of integrated here by the rosette. And then we've actually put it on the back of our ROV as well. And it's been successful at collecting lots and lots of water. And the cool thing about having it on the ROV is you kind of know exactly like the context of where you collected that eDNA sample. So we're often triggering that where we are like in the middle of a really diverse area of corals or sponges or things like that. And it's giving you information about stuff you can't image and understand is there otherwise. So cool new technology there. I was really impressed with this sensor we had from Woods Hole, sensor for aqueous gases, SAGE. So it's basically, you can set it up to measure a variety of different gases that are in the water. So it's got a membrane, it has the gases permeate through the membrane into like a little fiber optic, and then they shoot lasers into that, and based on the absorption, they know kind of what gas that is. So it was mounted on our ROV, and it was also mounted on Sentry when we had it on board. So this allowed some really amazing carbon dioxide studies. We were in a seamount called Vaialulu. This is like a pretty active underwater volcano site that's been extensively studied. But this was kind of the first time they were able to do sort of a broad measurement of CO2 concentrations across the crater on Sentry as it was running mapping lines. We were also able to mount it on the ROV and then explore along the seafloor and measure CO2 concentrations at known vents and also find new diffuse venting sites that were previously unknown using this instrument. So really cool new technology. And then right now out on the ship we have a partnership with Deep Sea Power and Light. There's a new video camera system that they developed. So ultra high resolution 4K camera just mounted on the ROV within the past week, and that's being tested right now. So very cool new tech, and we hope that could be something in the future that we use potentially regularly. So the idea really here is that the Nautilus, we're hoping to provide it as sort of a mothership and use other autonomous technologies to really expand sort of the footprint of how much we can explore and where we can explore, and having assets both at the water surface, in the water column, and exploring the seafloor, in some cases simultaneously. And then we want to figure out the way that these robots can communicate with each other so that they're making sort of more intelligent sampling decisions in real time. So an example of that, which you might have seen already, is an expedition where we used DRIX deployed off the ship, and we had Mesobot deployed in the water, and then DRIX was using an EK80 to actually image the water column. So you see this is an example of EK80 data where you see a deep scattering layer here. You can actually see the track of the vehicle as a strong reflector right there. And then through acoustic communications from DRIX to the Mesobot, you can basically direct it to that layer and say, this is where you want to sample for eDNA or take imagery. So Larry calls this verified directed sampling. And it's really an interesting integration between...
Everybody calls it verified.
Okay, yeah, everyone knows it now. So it's a really cool way that the communication is set up between the vehicles, and it just makes for a much more effective way to explore instead of just taking samples, say at fixed depths, maybe kind of missing the most interesting part of what you're trying to study. In another example, we used AUV Sentry. as we heard last week from Dana's talk, often AUVs are used to basically hunt for these hydrothermal vent sites. And finding more intelligent, effective ways to do that is an important focus of research right now. So these hydrothermal vent sites on the seafloor, they have a buoyant plume, often with unique signatures for temperature, salinity, oxygen reduction potential, methane gas, optical backscatter. So those are some of the sensors you'd want on your AUV to find. And then when you find them, you want to kind of use the AUV smartly to hone in and figure out where it's the source of that is on the seafloors. So we did a project last year, again, the same seamount, Biolulu, and there's these buoyant plumes in here that you can find with the vehicle. And the novel thing that was done on this one was we had the sensor data from Sentry actually being sent to the Nautilus in real time during the survey. And then we were putting that over the internet to a feed to the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory scientists that were partners on this. And they had an algorithm that they were developing to try to sort of do this all autonomously. So for now, it's kind of a human in the loop decision making. But they were seeing how well we could collect measurements with an AUV in real time, send it to a shore-based scientist, and then have the scientist tweak an algorithm that would basically help it have a smarter track that would then hone in and find the source of the hydrothermal vents. So it was just a really cool example of how this can all work together, and it was quite successful. Okay, shifting gears a little bit, I just wanted to touch base on how we do our community-based planning projects. So when we're planning future expeditions for ocean exploration, kind of what's the process? So we're obviously responsive to NOAA and our sponsor priorities. There's been a fair number of workshops and strategic plans about, where are the priority areas and science questions in places like the Pacific. So we want to take advantage of all that input. We have annual calls for science input. So we'll say, here's where we're going next year. Please give us your ideas on where to map, what the priorities are for science questions. If you could show us where you'd like to do an ROV dive, please give us, a draft drive track. And then we actually go to the places that we're gonna be doing these expeditions and meet with the local management communities, the government officials that are involved, try to understand their science questions, and sort of synthesize all of that into these draft plans that then are circulated as draft expedition plans for feedback. So the idea here is really that we're not just developing plans in a vacuum. We're trying to engage as broad a group and have it really respond to people's research and management needs. So we have the planning phase I just described. Within about a month of an expedition, we'll have a final expedition plan that kind of details out where we're going and what assets we'll be on, who's going to be on board, what we're doing. We do the expedition. There's a variety of ways to participate, which I'll describe. And then after the expedition, within a couple weeks, we try to get the samples on their way to these public archives so that the data can be used quickly. We don't want it just sitting on a hard drive on someone's shelf. And then within 2 weeks after an expedition, we'll have like a quick 2-pager. What did we discover? What were the key sort of accomplishments of that particular expedition? And then every year we'll have a detailed annual report, which with a lot more granularity about what we found, what we discovered, and what was new and interesting. So this is like a call for science input. We'll come out and we'll show you where we're going for the year. We'll ask for feedback. That's coming out for next year in a little while. And then if you choose to participate, so the question here is who can participate and what are the mechanisms by which you participate in this type of work? Basically anyone with an internet connection can just go to our website when we're at sea and watch the live feed and just kind of check it out. So that's sort of the simplest way to participate. And you can go to the page, you'll see where the ship is in the world, the live video feeds of what something like the ROV is seeing, and then some key information about like what depth the vehicle's at, what's the temperature of the seawater and things like that. And there's a couple different channels there, so oftentimes like what's the main vehicle seeing, what's the one above it seeing, and then channel 3 is often like what's in the control van where the scientists are actually doing the work. So that's kind of the quick and dirty way to participate. If you want to become more engaged as a scientist, you just sign up for an expedition, and that's where you actually get involved in terms of helping to plan and execute the mission, or just tune in and participate more as a scientist. So this gives you access to a variety of documents which you'll get. So you get the detailed expedition plan. You'll get daily situation reports, so you'll be basically on part of an email thread to get details on what happened today. Are we running into problems with weather? How did things go? Exactly where we are and what's going on. And then you get the ROV dive plan. So this is very specific. It's like, we're diving at this time, the vehicles are gonna be on the bottom on this hour, and you'll get a map with the dive track planned out, things like that. So if you really wanna get engaged at that level. And then you also get access to a really low latency video feed that's higher quality than what you can just get through our website. Maps and environmental sensor data from the vehicles themselves, and then a science chat where you can actually participate. So if you're a specialist in some unique aspect of what we're studying, you can kind of weigh in on what we're seeing and help really inform the value of the science derived from the dive. So this is what an expedition summary at the end will look like, what our main accomplishments, and then there'll be that detailed summary at the end of the year. So I just wanted to flag all the work that we did this year in 2025. There should be a summary coming out in spring of 2026. So if you just want to see the final product this year, it's a really great report to see. All of this data is public again, so these are the different data types and where they end up. So if you have particular questions about where the rock samples go, or where can I find the multibeam data, this kind of summarizes it all, and there's hot links to the actual repositories themselves. So how can you get involved if you want to? Again, you can review our expedition plans. There's the call for science that comes out where you can actually weigh in with your ideas. You can sign up as a scientist ashore to participate through the portals I just mentioned. And then we do have a student internship program, which is really cool. I mean, it's really unique in some ways. Some of the, I haven't seen another place where you can be actually driving an ROV within a few days of being on the ship as a student. It's really cool. We also have mapping internships, so we train you systematically on how to run all of our mapping systems, how to process the data, how to make products out of it. There's a video engineering internship where you learn what the broadcast video engineers do. Ocean science, so that's more helping to annotate all the video and what we're seeing while the ROVs are in the water. And then a science communication fellowship, so if you're interested in how do we take all this science and translate it to the public, we have people on the ship doing that each cruise that host live interactions with shore-based audiences and museums, and pretty much anyone who wants to schedule a time to call in and see what's going on in the ship. So all of which is to say the end goal here is to get this information used, right? So we do have a lot of people publishing the results of the expeditions every year. So this is an example from 2023. And if you're looking for data, we have lots of it. So since we've been in the Pacific since 2015, you can see where we've been on all these expeditions. Those yellow track lines are basically the multi-beam coverage as we've moved around different parts of the ocean. We've mapped 1 million square kilometers of seafloor, so lots of multi-beam data to work with, sub-bottom data, and over 1,000 ROV dive surveys in the Pacific. So it's a huge repository of data just waiting to be further analyzed and evaluated for discoveries. Now I want to move into just a few highlights of stuff we did this year and actually the past couple of years in the Pacific. It's hard to pick a couple, but I just wanted to highlight a few things. So in the past, in 2025, we went and started off our work in the Mariana Trench Marine National Monument. So we had 2 expeditions there. This is where it's located, so over by the deepest part of the ocean. This is what the results of the cruise. So we did basically a big transit counterclockwise around the whole Mariana Island region, including the Mariana Trench itself. We crossed twice. So we worked both in the sort of deep abyssal plains off to the east, and then on the west side we worked to visit a lot of the volcanic subsea volcanoes there, some of which had been studied before, and so we were remapping them to see how they changed since the last visit, and do some ROV dives and gather some new data. And some of the highlights of this in terms of imagery, these are these deep sea hydrothermal vents that we were able to go to. We looked at some of the young basalts, so some of the youngest seafloor, where the seafloor spreading center is there. And we looked at some of the active vent fields, and then we remapped, actually this composite image, you can see a human put in here for scale. So this is the structure from motion kind of approach where we had the ROV gathering imagery from around this vent, moving upwards for a couple hours, and then it was all put together in this photo mosaic 3D structure, which you can actually go to a website shown there and kind of play with and zoom in on and see the actual structure of the chimney, which is super cool. So I'm going to try to play a video here just with some of that footage.
Oh, I see some plumes, I think.
Yeah, you're probably going to be good when you swing in on this one.
Wow, it looks like the whole thing has fallen over.
Really?
Yeah, because, I mean, this used to be 16 meters high, so it has changed a lot.
Wow.
It was a massive chimney before. Wow, there's just this skinny little one now.
Well, it's still venting.
Wow.
Oh, that's incredible.
For me, it's completely different.
It is?
It's like, this is tiny compared to what it was before. The old chimney must have fallen over and this is regrowing in its place.
Well, you see it's on a giant mound,
Yeah,
and all that mound is made up of these old chimney pieces.
Right.
The top there,
yeah.
That's
it
gorgeous.
actually is about 15 meters altitude.
Is it
15 meters still?
But,
Just skinnier?
above the base?
yeah, what I'm hitting on the Doppler here now, yeah.
Wow, that is phenomenal. It was worth the wait to see it. This is just stunning to see.
So that was super cool. And one of the voices you heard was Bill Chadwick. He's a person that studied these vent systems for a long time. So he's actually been to this particular vent before. That's why he was describing how it changed since the last time.
Oh, I see.
So while we were also in this region, we were able to remap Ahi Seamount, which is another subsea volcano. So that's the map we were able to generate from Nautilus. And then we did a change analysis from our new map with the previous time it had been mapped a few years prior. And this represents sort of growth on the top of the seamount, and then coming down the sides, there was basically this light material that was sloughing off. So it's cool to go back to certain areas that are dynamic like this and see how they're changing. And then we actually had support from the volcanologists that monitored these sites for hazards. So this was satellite imagery, and it actually captured the ship like right off near the summit of the feature, which is super cool. But basically we were asking them to help us judge whether it was safe to put the ship right above an active volcano, if that was a wise thing to do. And we decided that it was, so we were able to go back and do quite another ROV dive here, which is fun. And this is some highlight footage from being at the top of Seamount.
Oh, wow. Oh, here we go.
The lighting is really difficult.
Yeah.
Oh, this might.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
You can kind of
Beautiful.
get a feel for this.
I'm so relaxed right now.
Very unusual.
You deserve it.
Ooh. Bubbles.
There's.
Oh, ta-da!
Look at that.
Oh,
Think the fish
nice.
tank.
Now have a shark fly through there.
Yeah.
This is a 5 for me.
This is amazing.
Should we try it with
Yeah.
the lights just to see
Sure.
what it looks like?
There's no lights.
Whoa.
No
Oh,
lights.
cool.
Let me just do something really quick.
This looks like we're in a fish tank.
This is like
We could just
a Disney movie.
some
It
jazz.
Ah,
Oh,
look at those bubble streams.
This is
Now those CO2
That's
bubbles.
CO2, yeah.
This is amazing.
Which is that. Look how much gas is coming out.
This is actually the top of the volcano.
10 for 10 with video with Ben again.
Daylight, so this is ambient lighting.
Wow.
So pretty.
So there's so many like individual streams and then they're like rotating in kind of a
So you'll be
clockwise
hanging out with all
direction
these
and
fish.
twisting around.
Wow.
That is great.
They're
Oh my
beautiful.
gosh.
Oh my word.
I'm gonna need some video clips of these. Yeah, I'm tagging all these as highlights.
Screensaver.
They're
Oh yeah.
amazing. You could put like a jazz, like instrumental playlist over this.
So you can see the chatter is not always very scientific, it's like just we do try to engage some of the shore audiences that are, they're not scientists. So again, something that was unusual on this trip is we got to map these very shallow seamounts. They're almost breaking the surface with our deep water multibeam. So it was a little scary sometimes, wondering if we were gonna navigate too close to these reefs way out there. And then we were able to do these relatively shallow ROV dives and just discover these mesophotic reefs that were fairly pristine and really interesting. So that was some of the highlights from Mariana region. And then we did an expedition recently, which Larry was actually out on Iron Bottom Sound in the Solomon Islands. So Iron Bottom Sound is this area that was the site of major naval battles during World War II. Over about 111 sunk ships in this area, and over 1,000 planes lost here as well. So part of this mission was really looking for some of these really important historical archaeological.
Incredible to see it come out of the dark like that.
Wow.
Yeah, the ship is the USS Vincennes.
So USS Vincennes along with USS Astoria and USS Quincy were patrolling this area when they came across several Japanese ships, and within about an hour later, USS Vincennes sunk to the depth here, about 1,000 meters, taking with her about 300 of her crew. The battles of Guadalcanal and the Solomon Islands was the center stage of several really important naval battles. They all were taken in this very, very small geographic area between really three major islands in this close body of water between the islands of Guadalcanal, Savo Island, and the Nagila Islands. It's an area that's about 30 square miles. We have about 100 or so naval ships that were lost and about 1,500 planes.
This expedition does include experts from all former combatant nations here in the Solomon Islands campaign. So certainly our goal is to showcase that international collaboration and each nation learning more about the history of this place and how it's changing over time.
It was really stunning footage for those of you that are interested in marine archaeology. The last thing I wanted to highlight is some of the World War II places that we were able to explore in the Battle of Midway. This was a couple years back. We had the ROV set up. These wrecks were right around 5,000 meters, so they were below where we could use our normal lead ROV, Hercules. And so we were actually just diving with the Atalanta tow sled. So the imagery's a little melty, but we got some stunning footage off the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown. So that was 5,075 meters deep. We were also able to image for the first time. These wrecks had been discovered previously with surveys by others, but this was the first imagery that we were able to get from the aircraft carrier Kaga and then the aircraft carrier Akagi. So these are both Japanese aircraft carriers that were lost. So it was really sobering and just remarkable to see these wrecks that had never been imaged since they were sunk back in World War II. And then there's these like just crazy discoveries that sometimes happen. So on this expedition, basically they wanted to sample the rocks on this ROV dive. They put a scoop down. It was just literally just taking a plastic scoop of the sediment and then the cobbles there and just putting them in a bin and then bringing them up. And they started sifting through the sample and they realized there was a megalodon tooth just sitting in there that we had sampled totally by accident and just total luck. So talk about a needle in a haystack. So there was actually a paper published on this. It was the first time I've been sort of like the context of where they were collected was recovered in situ from the deep sea. It's very cool. So you never know what you're going to find on any given dive. So it keeps it interesting. And then just a quick sneak peek for wrapping up the talk on our work for next year. So these will be our primary focus areas for 2026, Hawaiian Islands, Wake, Mariana, and the Ryukyu Islands of Japan. So stay tuned, and if you're interested in working with us in any of those regions, please stay in touch. There'll be a call for science input coming out in later this month. So please stay tuned and hope you can participate. And with that, take any questions.
Do you have any tips for people who would be applying for the student internships?
Yeah, I think it helps to demonstrate, some sort of, what are you interested in, mapping internship?
I would probably do the ROV engineering.
Okay, yeah, so just, the main thing is kind of explaining like how this internship really fits in with your desired career path and what it would mean to advance your goals, is kind of what we look for in like the essays. And then, just showing a willingness to like really learn is, we want to put people out there that's just fully leveraging the experience and getting the most out of it. But happy to talk more about it later too as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice presentation, that was super fun. How many years in advance are they looking to create their plan? Because it seems, how does that work?
Larry, do you want to take a crack at that?
Put on your last slide, where they think they're going next year. Not one of those cruises has been funded yet. Maybe Tuesday, we'll know for sure.
Is there like
So you think about it ahead
Yeah.
of time, but
Yeah.
they're constantly having to change because of funding situations.
They have to be nimble, and I noticed the month-long planning stage seems very short for a cruise. Like, they won't know who's gonna be on the boat until a month beforehand.
But it does vary, that does vary quite a bit. I mean, if, once we have funding for the expedition, then we really try to plan out like, okay, when are we gonna go and visit with the community in that region and get their input? And so sometimes we have a good lead time to do that, and sometimes it's very short, like the Cook Islands expedition kind of came up within the last few months, so we had to kind of.
The season was supposed to end a month ago.
Yeah.
Now they've done another expedition that just came up.
So yeah, I'd say it varies a lot, and it is very subject to the whims of the funding and knowing when things actually come through.
Thank you.
I was gonna ask, like, is the funding, is it like this, like that every year where it's always kind of up in the air, or is it because of the cycle the spawn cycle that we're on right now? Or like?
Sort of like that every year. I mean, there's a lot of, even NOAA Ocean Exploration, where the money comes through for the Cooperative Institute, I mean, they often are in the same, like, waiting to get the budget from Congress to really nail down their field season as well. So it's not uncommon that we're, at this point in the year, we have like a draft plan and we're hoping to get funding, and then usually by the end of the year, we kind of know that we have some money and we can actually start like detailing out the plans and actually hiring contractors and, making commitments to the people that have applied to the internship program, things like that.
I was also wondering, was the Nautilus originally designed for, like, to be a research vessel, or what was it built for?
No, it wasn't. It was probably from 1960.
Eastern German spy vessel,
That's fun.
Alexander von Humboldt.
So it's definitely been heavily reconfigured. And actually, a couple years ago,
I wouldn't guess that.
and a couple years ago, they made some pretty nice changes to it too. They put in a new engine, which was sorely needed, extended the back on the working deck, so gave us more room for things like the partner vehicles that we have out there. There's been major upgrades to the control van that's now on the top of the ship, and it's quite nice actually.
Some luxury.
Some luxury cabins up front for sort of VIPs to help sort of like fundraise from other sources to help people that are passionate about ocean exploration.
So if anybody has $100,000, you're welcome to come anytime you
Yeah. Any more questions? Do we have anything online?
Nothing from online.
Yeah, any more questions? No? Yeah, we're finishing early. Yeah, with that, let's thank Derek again.